Hi, my name's Lina. I'm currently the Carers Service Lead in Tameside Local Authority. Our main priority is to provide carers with information and enable them to reach the appropriate services at the right time. We acknowledge that carers have a wealth of knowledge and experience, and we need to make sure that that's valued by all the health and social care staff that they come into contact with. Carers sometimes don't define themselves as a carer initially, and they don't see themselves with that label. But what they might do is think about, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a mother, I'm looking after somebody as a family member or as a friend, and they kind of feel they're not a carer because they're just doing it because they're that relation. Or it might be, you know, that's what I'm supposed to do, that's my job, that's what I have to do, it's my duty. And in a way, it doesn't matter that they don't give themselves a label as a carer and they don't describe themselves as a carer, but that might mean that they're missing out on vital kind of information and advice, entitlements that they can have. And there's actually legislation for carers there to support, protect them, and I'm going to go through that in a little while. There are benefits to registering as a carer with different agencies. So for example, the DWP, if they know that you're a carer, then they can make sure that you get the carer's allowance or other entitled benefits that you can get as a booster almost to other benefits. With a GP, might be important that you're registered with them so that they can provide you with the right support that you need, either to carry on in your caring role or to give you longer appointments, so that and be flexible with your appointments. So that's something else. Up at the hospital, you know, there's a new carer's passport, so that might be things that you can make sure that you get access to somebody if they're in hospital. Outside of visiting hours, it might be that the hospital staff can sort of ask you and prompt you about things that they're not maybe being able to understand about how the person that you're looking after is doing in hospital, but then you can actually add to that information, you know. So seeing you as an expert partner is really important for hospital staff. If you register with the local authority in a carer service, then we can make sure that you quickly get the right support. And for example, in a crisis, we can make sure that we're not having to ask you questions that might seem inappropriate at the time, but we just get on with dealing with what you need to have the support with, and then we can come back to sort of more long-term issues later on if you're registered with them. How to register as a carer? Usually, if you just let the reception staff know at any of those agencies, then they will know what to do. They will know how to register as a carer. They might take some details from you and load you on systems, but all of that information is kept safely, confidentially, and only used for the purpose of to support you in your caring role. Carers are defined in law as under the Care Act 2014 and also by NHS commissioning standards, and that definition is listed on the slide there, but it talks about being a carer and that might be children or adults, looking after a family member or a partner, a friend, somebody who needs the support as necessary support because of their illness, frailty, and disability, might be a mental health problem, might be a sensory issue, or an addiction, and that person cannot cope on their own without your support. The care that you give is unpaid, so we're not talking about care workers, we're not talking about staff who are paid to do a job. This is you in an informal capacity and doing it on a voluntary basis. It might be that you live with that person, might be that they live somewhere else, but you have to do a lot of phone calls, things like that. So, but the care is unpaid that you give. So I've talked about legislation. In the census 2011, 11% of the population self-declared themselves as a carer. Now that might be an underestimation. There might be actually more people, but that was a self-declaration of them being a carer. More recent information from 2019, Carers UK, which is a national organisation lobbying for carers, state that 1 in 8 of adults are carers. So this figure's showing that actually, you know, there's a growing population of people who are providing the support to the loved ones, to the family members, and especially during COVID times as well. So there's legislation under the Care Act, as I talked about, but there's also Children and Families Act 2014, which also gives local authorities responsibilities for duty of care to a parent carer or a young carer, respectively, so that you've got the adults and the children both being covered in legislation. There's a wellbeing principle in the Care Act, which means that whoever is providing the care, so a carer, is looking after the person with the care needs, we have a responsibility to make sure that they're getting the support that they need. And the wellbeing principle deals with people, all carers, whether the person with care needs has got necessary care needs or not. So if you feel, this is very much about perception, if you feel that you're in a caring role and you are providing support to somebody and they couldn't manage without you, you are deemed as a carer. And actually that wellbeing principle means that we have to support you to make sure that you get that wellbeing support you need, and making sure that you've got the you've got the responsibilities, not on your own necessarily, but we can support you in that. In addition, if a carer meets eligibility under the Care Act, you can also get direct support for yourself and services, and that's available to all carers under both those legislations, as long as you meet the eligibility criteria, again, which I'm going to go through later. The expectation is that once a year, carers are offered an assessment. So if situations change in that year, obviously you can still request an assessment at any point, but you can also decline that assessment as well. It's not necessary, but it's there to offer you that support and make sure that you're getting what you need to help your well-being, to help you be able to continue caring role, to help you in maintaining your own life as well, alongside that caring role. So sometimes you might not feel it's the right time to have that carer's assessment. That doesn't mean at any point in the future you can't come back to us. You must, if you feel that a carer's assessment would be helpful, then you must come and speak to one of the agencies that we've mentioned. The eligibility for carers is slightly different to those of the person with care needs under the Care Act, and I'm going to go through those in a little while. But that carer's assessment is about a discussion. It's about an opportunity for you to talk about what is going on in your life and how that caring role might impact on you, positively or differently. Sometimes it can be really rewarding that you've got that responsibility and you're doing things for that person that you know is supporting them and makes you feel proud. But there may be times where it gets too much and it gets on top of you, it's stopping you doing things. So that's what that assessment is an opportunity to talk to somebody, sometimes for the first time, about how the caring role is impacting on you. On the screen I've put now the eligibility criteria under the Care Act, and as I've talked about, your needs are arising as a result of providing necessary care for an adult, i.e. that person cannot manage and cannot live independently without your support. Secondly, the effect of that caring need is having an impact on you, or potential impact on you, and the circumstances are difficult for you. And then thirdly, if it's having enough of an impact, a significant impact, that's then stopping you doing certain things. As the next slide shows, it talks about different ways that the caring role is impacting on your lives. It could be that your mental well-being is at risk and you're unable to achieve a set of outcomes, or one of a set of outcomes, which might stop you continuing in your caring role, but also it's stopping you having relationships with other members of your family. It might stop you being able to have your parental role, might stop you being able to maintain your own home environment. It might stop you, it might affect your nutritional needs. So whether you're eligible or not as a carer under the Care Act or the Children and Families Act, there's always going to be information, advice, support, guidance, a listening ear, you know, and please do contact any of the services that we've mentioned, but certainly contact the Carers Service. Now in Tameside, the Carers Service is part of the local authority. It's not always the same in every area, but we feel that carers are so important to the local community, and we take our responsibilities that seriously, that we have kept the responsibility within local authority. And it's open to anybody who lives in Tameside as a carer or looks after someone who lives in Tameside. Just to say that Glossop, because obviously this is Tameside and Glossop, so Glossop's carers the services are delivered by Derbyshire Local Authority. So if you're interested in that, then either contact Derbyshire Local Authority area or the Carer Service in Glossop. So what can the Carer Service locally offer you? We can offer the free confidential information and advice to carers about your caring role, as we've talked about, or even other things that are troubling you. You know, we're not just there just only to look after carers in their caring role, we're there to look after carers. Information and advice about the person that you care for. Sometimes you might be struggling with trying to get information about, you know, a service like, I don't know, a continence service. We'll provide you with that information. It's not to say that because you don't need it, it's about the person that you care for and how it helps you continue that and support you to be able to access the services for that person as well. So we'll signpost you or refer you if you want us to, and that will help both you and the cared for. There are drop-in sessions usually at Tameside 1. There's a little glass box on the corner called the People's Place. So in usual circumstances, that drop-in centre will be open 8:30 till 5. At the moment, because of COVID, we are only offering telephone support at the moment, and I'll give you the details in a little while. You can register with us as a carer, whether you have your assessment with us or not, whether you want to see us regularly or not, whether you want us to contact you regularly or not. You can still just register with us, and that way, if at any point you need to see us, we've got your information. You don't have to go through the rigmarole of lots of questions at the beginning of every conversation with you. We'll know you, and that's important to me. You can also apply for what's called a Tameside Emergency Carers Card, and that card is shown on screen, and that will give us details about what happens if something happens to you. Hopefully nothing will, but if you're caught outside and for example the cared for is at home expecting you back in half an hour, you can't make it back for whatever reason. Now, if you can tell somebody, I've sprained my ankle, I need to go to hospital, you can tell somebody, I've got you know, my mother at home who needs that support, so she's expecting me back, and somebody pop round and see her or give her a ring. That's fine. If you're a bit more incapacitated than that and you can't tell somebody, then actually the blue light services know to look for this card that's shown on screen, and they can make the contact with the council, and they will then put the pre-planned emergency details in place. You will have already given that pre-planned information to the council, and we can make sure, okay, I'm on the floor, are paramedics with me, they will look for that detail. They know to ring my husband to then make sure that he gets home for my mum. So that's a Tameside Emergency Carers card, sometimes also called a tech card. We also have there's a week called Carers Week in June usually. So we try and do lots of activities for carers, even more than we do normally. And that's about celebrating you being a carer, celebrating the fact that, you know, at least 11% of the population are providing support to people that we couldn't manage without you, and that you're getting that reward from, hopefully, and we are there to support that. Carers' Rights Day is in November, and that's every year again, and that's about making sure that carers are usually are given the information to help them in all of these areas of life that we've talked about. We also have a newsletter called Signpost, and that's distributed across Tameside. And now if you wanted that coming to your door, then you can register with us for that as well. Contact details for the Carer Centre are shown on screen here, so by all means give us a ring.